I want to talk about the dangers of buying a home with a low down payment. I see too many videos of mortgage brokers, real estate agents telling you that it's always a good time to buy a home, and whether you're 0% down with a VA loan, 3.5% down with an FHA loan, or doing a very low down payment through a different mortgage program, they all say that it's a great time. No one talks about the risks of buying a house with a low down payment. And I know a lot of people who did this 2, 3 years ago when mortgage rates were 7.5%. And a lot of them were expecting the ability to refinance sooner than now. And we don't really even have a refinancing opportunity. And I think that is part of the risks of choosing what your down payment is going to be when you are becoming a homeowner. Let's say, for example, you bought with 3.5% down 2 years ago. Mortgage rates were over 7%. You were told, because I know everyone was told by most mortgage brokers, that you're going to be able to refinance in a year. Don't worry about it. You just have to eat the high monthly payment for the next year or so, and then rates will be in the fives. You can refinance. It'll drop your monthly payment by 25%, and then you'll be able to afford that house a lot easier. And look where we are now. Rates are basically at 7%. I think they're hovering between 6.5%, 7%. So there's been no refinance opportunity. And for a lot of people who bought a house with the expectation of refinancing sooner, it hasn't been comfortable to be a homeowner. In fact, in some areas, prices are actually down. They're not up. Southern California, where I am, sure, it's appreciated a lot since rates started going up. So you're in a good position. But for other parts of the country, prices haven't really done a whole lot. So you've been eating this high monthly payment while not gaining any equity. And, well, not gaining much equity because, yeah, you have principal going into your home every month, but it's a fraction of what you're paying in interest. And I think excuse me, there's a bird screaming at the top of its lungs. I hope you can't hear that. The real dangers of being a homeowner with a low down payment is the worry that prices actually go down. Now, with some FHA loans, you can refinance even if you're underwater on your mortgage. There are some caveats you have to deal with for that, but for the most part, you're able to refinance still. However, if you don't have an FHA loan, you can't refinance if you're underwater on your mortgage. Now, what does that mean? Let's say you bought a house for $500,000 with 3.5% down, and 2 years later, house prices have dropped 5%, 10%. You now owe more on your house than what it is worth. So your house's value is probably, if they drop 10%, it's $450,000. You still owe more money on your mortgage. And that is the real danger when having a low down payment and becoming a homeowner. For a lot of people, if you put 20% down, house prices have to drop 20% in a short period of time for you to be underwater on your mortgage. That is almost impossible unless we have another financial crisis, but there's so much equity with homeowners right now that a financial crisis wouldn't really affect residential real estate that much. It would be significantly less people required to sell than that of the 2008 crisis. Sure, stocks could crash a lot, but equity, most people have over 20%, over 50% equity in their home. They are far from being forced to sell. A lot of them can just do a cash out refinance and then have cash on hand to survive any potential crisis that we are coming across. But low down payment homeowners, they could be in for some pain. I mean, we've seen prices double in a lot of the country over the last 7 to 8 years. In Southern California, fortunately, if you're a homeowner here, prices seem to just keep going up. There's a ton of demand. But in places like Florida, Texas, where inventory is skyrocketing, there's a real risk of prices declining over the next couple years. And if your expectation is to refinance when rates drop, you might not be able to, even if in a year from now rates are at 5.5%, and you had a 3% down payment, you're not going to be able to refinance. You're going to be underwater on your mortgage, and most banks won't let you refinance unless you have this strange FHA ability to refinance, but you do have to check with your lender and see if that's even possible. Now, obviously, there are perks of having a low down payment when buying a home. You can get into home ownership without needing a lot of out-of-pocket costs. So if you're buying $1 million home and you're doing 3.5% down, it's $35,000 toward the house, as opposed to $200,000 if you're doing the standard, not standard, the conventional 20% down. So yes, there are perks, especially if you're buying in an upward trending market. It's been wonderful for those homeowners. I had a couple clients who did 0% down, FHA 3.5% down in 2022, and their house price is up 20% since they bought. So they have an enormous amount of equity. But for a lot of people, that didn't happen. For a lot of people, they bought barely being able to afford the monthly payment, and now their home's value is actually less than where they bought it for. So this isn't a caution, don't buy a house with a low down payment, make sure you save up 20%, not at all. In fact, most people wouldn't be homeowners if they had to save up 20%. I just wanted to talk about the risks of buying a house if you are putting 3% down, if you are putting 0% down, because there are risks. I don't want you to go in with the expectation that your house is going to be 20% more than when you bought it in 2 years. We are entering an economy that is likely going to be slow for the next 2 to 3 years. Companies are forecasting lower growth. This is not an environment where house prices double in 5 years. It's probably not going to happen. There'll be pockets of the country where it does, but for the most part, we're probably going to have a neutral market, maybe a correction end of this year or in 2026. So I'm just wanting to caution people, don't over leverage yourself. Make sure you can afford the monthly payment. I don't want it to put a strain on your everyday life. I don't want it to impact things you do on a weekly basis. It should be something that you're not even concerned about. If you're putting 3.5% down, if you're getting a VA loan, make sure your monthly payment is not 50% of your income prior to taxes. That's what a lot of people seem to not realize. Even if you can qualify for a 50% debt to income ratio, doesn't mean you have to buy on the upper limit of your qualification. You can get yourself into 35% debt to income. That's fine, that's more manageable. Remember, you do have to pay taxes. So these are just things that a lot of people, they watch videos and they're like, oh, I can do 3.5% down. Yeah, you absolutely can, but just be aware of the risks. If you like this video, subscribe for more. And once again, my name is Iain Phillips. I'm a realtor here in Southern California. So if you're looking to buy or sell, reach out. I'd love to chat. Maybe I'd be a good fit for you. See you next time.